Hello and welcome to our REVIT MEP 2012 General Introduction video series here at CADclips. This is the first video in our series of REVIT MEP 2012 videos coming up in the next couple of months. So this is the first video of the general introduction. So we're going to break this down into really four main video series over the next little while. The first one is going to be called REVIT MEP 2012 General Introduction, which is really the series you're listening to right now. So we'll follow up this introduction video with the remaining information that we're going to talk about down here. Coming up after this general introduction video series, we will follow it up with REVIT MEP 2012 Mechanical, REVIT MEP 2012 Electrical, REVIT MEP 2012 Plumbing and Piping. We may even slip in some other series in between specific to, filtering or scheduling or something like that. But for the most part, we're going to start off with a nice general introduction for everyone, assuming you have never used REVIT before. Then after this series, we'll go through and cover these other topics over here. So in this particular series, REVIT MEP, and we're going to call this RME to make it easier, 2012 General Introduction, which is the series up on top, is this series we're in, and I'm just in a 3D view here, and this is a standard file that comes with REVIT out of the box, and I've just gone have it in the background there. So we're actually in REVIT MEP 2012. I've got a file open. I'm just looking at that just to kind of wet your taste buds. And what we're going to do in this next couple or several videos in this series is talk about these things. So REVIT MEP 2012 General Introduction. Okay, in this series we're going to talk about the supplied files and data sets that we're going to use in the next while. So we do have some files that Autodesk has provided with the software that we can use for editing and tutorial files. So we're going to talk about those files, and you can download those from our CADclips webpage. We're going to talk about generally just opening up REVIT MEP projects, saving projects, and renaming and stuff like that. So just some basic opening and saving of projects, very general information. We're going to talk about what parametric technology is and what it means to REVIT MEP. So understanding what the term parametric means, and we'll give you a couple of great demonstrations on how that works. Okay, that's really what makes REVIT such a powerful tool. We'll talk about REVIT elements and the element structure, the behavior, the categories, and the types. REVIT is very different from if you've used AutoCAD or MicroStation. It's got a completely different structure as far as the objects go, and that all lends to the fact that it's all parametric. So we'll talk about how elements are created and how they behave and what a category is versus a type, and instance parameters and type parameters and all kinds of neat stuff like that. Okay, we'll talk about projects, creating projects, renaming projects. Project templates are very important when you start a new project. What a family is. Okay, we don't have blocks or cells in REVIT. We have families, and we have various degrees of families. Some are system families. You can't change them or do as much with them, but they're very powerful. So we'll talk about families and projects. Then we start to get into the nitty-gritty, and we'll talk about levels and grid lines and reference planes. Okay, these are considered datums. Very important, because these are what control a lot of the objects, are tied to levels, grid lines, and reference planes. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk a lot about views and view properties and how that works. And we've got our properties palette and our project browser over here on the left hand side, and we'll talk about how they help us manage all of our different views and all of our objects. We will get into title blocks and creating sheets and views and adding views to sheets and seeing our title block and getting ready to print. We'll talk about the ribbon in the interface, which is all this stuff you see up in here, and tabs that you can click on, and then the different panels that you have, and then the different tools, and some of them have little flyouts in different places. So we'll go through and click on all this stuff and show you how everything works inside of here. So the general understanding of how this ribbon works, and also this quick access toolbar which we see at the top over there. So the ribbon, the tabs, panels, tools, the options bar over here which lights up when we start to draw. There's nothing on there right now. Okay, the properties panel and how it behaves. Then we'll get into doing a little bit of basic editing of files. So we'll just go in and play around a little bit with some existing objects and kind of get your feet wet on how things work and how the clicking process works. Really just selecting objects and stuff. We'll also in this series create a new project, just a basic project on and using a project template. We'll get into that. It's very important that we have a look at the REVIT MEP settings before we get started. So there's some specific settings for mechanical, electrical, and setting up the standards for the project. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll link in an architectural model into this, into an empty file, and we'll create some new levels, and we'll show you how Copy Monitor works with the levels of the architectural model. So after we link in the architectural model, we will tie our levels and monitor the activity of the architectural model for us. Okay, we'll learn a little bit about applying view templates to make our views look different, and also a little bit about filtering. So you can see here you've got the different air systems. You've got return air, you've got supplied air, and you've got exhaust air. And I've add a filter here so that you can see the blue is the supply, the green I believe is the return, and the orange is the exhaust, but I could be wrong on that. So we added some filters to color code that, which is really nice. You can color code anything in REVIT MEP, piping and electrical and stuff, so it really helps you visually identify what the commodity is of that system. Okay, we'll talk about applying filters, adjusting the REVIT options. From our application pull down, we can go into the options button here and we can see all kinds of neat stuff in there. Okay, including REVIT shortcut keys and the spell checking. Okay, we're also going to talk about the system browser. So the REVIT system browser, we're going to talk a little bit about. I'll just add that to my list on the bottom. And the system browser is really neat because if you hit F9 on your keyboard, it brings up the system browser. And this is really where you can actually view the different systems from within REVIT. So then you can look at the exhaust system and you can tap right down inside of here and you can look at that, and you can actually go and identify the objects that make up that mechanical exhaust system. So this is called the system browser, which is only available in REVIT MEP. You don't have this tool in REVIT architecture or structure. So we're going to talk about the system browser. So this is just our opening lesson on what we're going to be doing in the next couple of months with our REVIT MEP 2012. Come on back and we'll have some more videos on all this good stuff that we've just talked about.